Hello, everyone. I'm Nancy Bronstein. I'm a Viking educator, and we're here to spend an hour together to have some fun learning about design shaping. Now, before we get started, we'll give people a couple minutes to get in their seats and get everything adjusted. Let me know if for some reason you can't hear me clearly. You should be able to. I am in my home sewing room, and I have a staff of 3 around the country that are helping me out, and they can hear me, so you should be able to hear me. And if you cannot, you should check your computer, the volume on your device and in your browser, and make sure that's all turned up all the way. So today, as I said, we're going to talk about design shaping, and design shaping is one of my most favorite features on the Epic 2, and I think I'll convince you of the same by the end of this hour. Design shaping and design applique are basically techniques where you can do embroidery designs all on your own, right on the machine itself, on the Designer Epic 2, without software. Of course, software is much more powerful, but you'll see that there's a ton of designs that you can make with your Designer Epic 2 or the Designer Ruby 90, the Brilliance 80, the Sapphire 95. They all have the ability to do design shaping. Now, some of the older machines had some design shaping, like the Designer Ruby Royale, but we have a much easier screen, bigger screen, easier screen to see what's going on, so it makes it a lot more fun, and it is a more sophisticated operating system. So it is more powerful and can do more things. So to show you what I'm talking about, I'm going to show you a picture of one of the things that I've made, and we'll get started. And please feel free to ask questions. I will stop once I notice there's a question that's floating up. Our staff is reading your questions and comments and trying to get my attention so I answer it. And I will be happy to do that as we move along. What I'm planning to do is show you how to use design shaping for different types of projects, and also give you tips to get the best results. So the way that I first started using design shaping, I'll show you a picture. And let's see. This was one of the first things I made when I first started using design shaping. And what design shaping basically does is you choose a shape, like in this case with this particular project, I chose a circle, and I then chose the sewing stitches to create that circle out of. Those are all pretty much, at least for the most part, they're sewing stitches. There might be, in the center, there is an embroidery design and scallop stitches around the edges. And I'm going to show you how you could create something like that. So I'm going to go back to my machine here and zoom in. So this is all done in embroidery, even though those were sewing stitches. I'm bringing sewing stitches into embroidery. So this is the screen that you see when you first turn on your Epic 2. Particularly if you have the embroidery arm on, it will open up in the embroidery screen. And if you are connected to wireless, you'll see the My Sewnet blog across the top. And of course, there's all sorts of projects in there. And that, in case you run out of ideas of things to do, you can find a project, click on it. It'll give you all of the instructions as well as the design file to download if you want to make that project. And actually, before I go off this screen, I should let you know that in the Knowledge Center, there is a tutorial on how to use or how to do design shaping. So if I touch Knowledge Center, and then I go to Step-by-Step Workbook, down here, I've got design shaping. And there are actually 3 separate tutorials on how to do design shaping. How to create a shape with embroidery designs, how to create a shape with a variety of different embroidery designs or stitches to create a pattern, and also how to do a design with your sewing stitches. So if you open these up, it'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to do design shaping. But I'm going to show you how today. We're going to have a lot of fun. So to do design shaping, you go into embroidery and start new. And my arm, of course, is going to want to calibrate. Now, down at the bottom tray, there are a series of different icons. The icon that has a star and a circle is your design shaping icon. So I'm going to touch that. And then I see the different shapes that I can use to create an embroidery design. So I can do circles, I can do flowers, hearts, squares, waves, straight lines, triangles, and the like. So I'm going to just choose a circle. And I'm going to minimize this screen by touching the minus symbol up at the top. And I know that I'm in design shaping because it says design shaping up there. And just like when I'm working in other screens in embroidery, I can change the diameter of this circle by touching the square and just dragging it. Or I can change it by going down here and touching in this field and putting in a measurement. I have my machine set up in millimeters, so this is a circle that's 176 millimeters. If I wanted to, I could go into my settings and make it inches. However, most instructions in embroidery are in millimeters, so I keep my machine in millimeters. So, but I could go up here and put in 155, say, and that would change the diameter to an exact amount. Now, with this lock-on down here, it will keep it as a circle. If I wanted to make it an oval, I could unlock this and put different measurements in these two fields, and then it would become an oval. But right now I want to keep it a circle because I like symmetry, and I'm going to make something like that linen doily picture that I showed you. So I have this circle, and what I can do is then I have to choose what I'm going to make that circle out of. Am I going to use sewing stitches, or am I going to use little embroidery designs, or maybe a design that I've saved? And I'm going to go into the My Sewnet library up here because I have a My Sewnet subscription. I can pull a design right off of the library. So I'm going to go up here and I'm going to put in mini designs because I know the mini designs are small because I want a small design. And then when I touch the design, it will tell me down there the size of the design. And that's about the right size for what I want to do. So I will load that. And now I have one of those designs right there. And because I did not set my hoop size when I started, it randomly threw me into a turnable hoop. So I am going to go back so that it's not distracting having that stripe down the middle and set my hoop size to where I want it to be. So I'm going to use a 360 by 260 hoop. I'm going to go back to design shaping, and I'm going to choose my circle. And then I'm going to go back to my the My Sewnet library, the subscription library service, where we have over 6,000 designs, and I've searched on mini designs, and I'm going to load that flower. So I have a little flower down at the bottom. If I wanted to, I could add another flower. And now I have a blue and a pink flower. And if I were to, what I want to do is I want to fill this up with flowers so it creates a circle, not just two flowers floating in space. Now, down here, I have a 2, and what that represents is the number of designs that I have loaded there. And what I want to do is I want these flowers to alternate. If I hit the positive sign right now, it will just increase the number of the last flower that I chose. But there's a toggle switch down here, and that turns this symbol here from a flower and a flower to a flower and a star. And that means it now is going to be pattern repeat. So it will repeat the pattern of blue, pink, blue, pink. So now they will alternate as I increase the number. And I can also play around with their placement. If I go over here to this icon, right now I have evenly spaced chosen. I could go to left justify. And what I could do is if I wanted to say make a half circle, I could fill that half circle up and then stop, and I have an arch basically. So that would be my design with an arch. Now I want to have them evenly spaced like so, and I'm going to just keep increasing them until they touch so that I've made a flower ring. Now there's some other choices here. This icon will allow you to change the placement in relationship to the circle. I can have them go, the designs go on the inside of the circle or on the outside like so. And I kind of like them centered like that. This icon will allow you, what it does is it writes them so they're all up and down rather than going around the circle like that where they're kind of on an angle. I prefer this look, but there's times when I might want the other one. So when I'm happy with it, I can touch the check mark. If I want, I can zoom in and see how close each flower is. Although I hope you can see on the screen that each of these flowers has a box around it, and that box delineates the beginning and the end of that stitch. But if I want to get a closer look, I can go down here and just increase the size and see exactly how this is going to be stitched out. So it looks like there's just a tiny bit of space between each flower. So I'm going to try adding one more and maybe one more. Okay, now it looks like they're just about touching, and that's what I'm going for. So now I'll bring it back to 100%. So I'm happy with it. I'm going to touch the check mark. So now I have this beautiful ring of flowers. And what I want to do now is I want to add more circles in order to make a design that's like that linen doily that I showed you. So I'll go back to design shaping down here, the icon with the star and the circle. And this time, what I want to do is I want to add sewing stitches. And the sewing stitches reside in the zigzag menu there. However, sewing stitches will generally have a, when they stitch out an embroidery, they have a fix on the beginning and the end of the stitch, which means that it basically does a tie off in the beginning and the end, which is, you really don't want in embroidery. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out of design shaping, and I'm going to load a stitch and edit it so I can take those fixes out because it will stitch out more smoothly. So I'm going to go up here to all my stitches and find something I think will look good. Let's go in here and maybe choose something like this. So I have this stitch here. Bring it over where you can see it. Oh, let's go back. I'm going to delete that because it went into that ring. Start over here. I want to deselect my ring, go back into my stitches, choose my stitch that I want. Now you can see it clearly. Now that's selected. So now I can go down to this icon, which is our stitch edit icon, and touch that. And I see the stitch as it's going to be stitched out. And you'll see there's a fix in the beginning and a fix in the end, which if I were just going to stitch one stitch, that would be fine. But if I'm going to do 30 of them, you don't want 60 fixes. It just, it's unnecessary. So to remove the fixes, I'm going to touch the top, the upward facing arrow until that fix is chosen. So it just kind of expanded and it became blue. Then I'm going to touch the garbage can, got rid of that. I'm going to touch the down arrow, and now I know that's selected, and I'm going to get rid of that. So now I have that stitch without the fixes. I'm happy with that. I'm going to touch the check mark. So now I've got this stitch that I want to form a circle out of. So I'm going to go to my design shaping icon, and I'm going to choose a circle. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller because I want it to be on the inside of this other circle. So now I have my stitch there, and I'm just going to guess that maybe it'll take 30. So I just touched that field there, and this box popped up. I'm going to put 30 in there and guess that that will fill it up. That was pretty close. And I'm looking at the red boxes that are around each stitch, and that looks pretty good. I think I might put one more, maybe one more. And now I'm happy with it. I'm going to touch the check mark. And now I have that nice ring that is the beginning of my design. You know, I have 2 rings. I want a few more rings. Another thing you can do with design shaping with circles is I'm going to go in and choose a circle again. You can kind of make your own design by combining designs. So I'm going to go in and choose a circle. And I'm going to touch the square and drag it down so it's inside here. Then I'm going to go into my designs that are in the Epic 2. And I know in the end menu there are mini designs. I'm going to go down, I'm going to find a design that looks like a leaf. So I'm going to choose this design. And now that leaf to me looks like it needs to be rotated 180 degrees as far as what I have planned for it to ultimately be. So in order to do that, there's this icon down here with a square with arrows. I touch that, and I can rotate that 180 degrees. And you want to rotate it first before you start incrementing the number. And I'm going to put some more in there. Then I'm going to touch the square and drag it down and make a flower. And that looks pretty good. So you see how you can just play and you can add ring after ring after ring. I mean, I could keep working on this and making it bigger and bigger and more elaborate. And if I do a ring and I don't like it, I can just touch the layers icon here, touch that ring, and then hit the trash can and start over again. Then once I stitch this out, I can make multiple copies if I want. If I think I'm going to do it again, or I might do it again, I can touch the circle down, I'm sorry, the heart down there, give it a name, and save it either to my cloud, or I could save it to a USB drive and give the design to my friend that also has an Epic 2. So they could have your original design. So that's a really fun way to play around, to get started, I think, with design shaping. But we're just scratching the surface now. I'm going to tell you another thing we can do with it. So actually, before I do that, I'm going to show you some more pictures of things that I've done with circular images. So this was the one that I first showed you. And this is another one I did. And actually the way this one was created is I created the appliques with the little flowers. I made one applique in applique shaping, saved that, and then chose a circle. And the circle I filled up with these appliques. And then these other stitches, the black stitches, are sewing stitches that I brought in as a circle. The outermost stitch is one of our OmniMotion stitches, which are our huge, beautiful sewing stitches. So you can combine either applique, you can combine that you've created yourself, or embroidery designs that are on your already on the Epic 2 or in the My Sewnet library. You can or sewing stitches. Now this pillow, I did the central design and I wanted some stars to circle it in a even fashion, and by using the shape creator, design shaping, I'm sorry, using design shaping in a circle with them evenly spaced and only putting in 6 stars, they're all evenly spaced automatically. It's kind of like using the encore function in the embroidery software. Now this is the next thing I'm going to show you. This is all pretty much sewing stitches that I brought in straight lines and stitched them all out. So if you're going to do something like that pillow, where you want line after line of beautiful decorative stitches, you could sit in sewing and sew that all out and it'll be just fine. However, if you lose your focus, that line may not be completely straight, or they may not be evenly spaced out, and it's a whole lot faster if you use design shaping to make those lines. You have the grid on your screen when you're creating it, and they'll all be beautiful and evenly spaced out, and you can walk away and it'll do it while you're making dinner. So I think it's the way to go. So I'm going to show you how to do something like that now. And before I do that, I'm going to see if there's any questions here. Can this be done on the original Epic? Yes, definitely. Can this be done on the Topaz 50? No, unfortunately not. The Topaz 50 is not sophisticated enough to do design shaping. But it can, as I said before, there's my well pump coming on. I hope you can still hear me. It can be done on the Brilliance 80, the Sapphire 95, the new Ruby 90, the original Epic, and the Epic 2. And could you have added words and letters too? Yes, you could have had that, and that's a great usage of it. Say you want to put somebody's name on something or somebody's initials. You can make a oval of whatever, embroidery designs you like, those little flowers that I did, or sewing stitches, or a circle, and put a monogram in there, or put another embroidery, or a word, like breathe or whatever, all those things that are popular now. So it's a very easy way to make these personalized gifts. I mean, I just love this feature. Actually, if we have time, I'm in the process of making a quilt for my soon-to-be first grandchild. And so I put one of the applique monsters in the middle. It's a very cute monster. And then put his name to be at the top, and then put frames of the stitches, the children's stitches, I think it was, I've forgotten which ones, but there's a frame that I made by picking a square and choosing one of the children's stitches to frame his name and the monsters. So it's a lot of fun. Okay, so now we're going to do straight lines. I got to get rid of this. So if we're going to do straight lines, it's the same concept, except instead of choosing a circle, we're going to choose a straight line. So I go down here to straight line. And I just visually, I see things better if it's up and down. So I always rotate it first thing. So down here is the rotation button. I touch that to make it active. And then I can touch the inner part of this dial and it'll rotate it 90 degrees. Now, I'm going to want this to be basically the length of my hoop. So I can touch one of these corners and pull it down, or I could put in this field whatever measurement I wanted to put in there. So now I have this, see if it's not, yeah, it's not going to be too long. So now I have this straight line, and I could go in and I could fill it up with flowers, any of the little tiny designs that are mini designs. I can fill it up with all of our different stitches. You know, I love to do the omni-motion stitches, these really big ones. I would, before I started doing the design shaping, take the fix off the beginning and the end of the stitches. But since I already showed you how to do that, I'm just going to show you how to line this up. So I could choose this nice big stitch. And again, I forgot to set the size of the hoop. So this is a teaching moment. We'll go back, and hopefully you'll learn from my mistake that first thing you do is you choose your hoop size. Okay, so I've got the hoop size that I want. I go back into design shaping down here by touching the star and the circle, choose my straight line, and I'm going to minimize that to get it out of the way. Then I want to rotate it, so I'm going to touch rotation and then the inner part of this dial. Then I'm going to pull it out to the size I want. Then I'll go into my stitches, and I'll find that stitch that I like a lot for this. I'll choose this stitch. And now because this is a big stitch, I'm just going to add them one by one because it fills up pretty fast. And that looks pretty good to me. Now, when I'm happy with it, I touch the check mark at the bottom. And then I can move this over if I like. Now, if I wanted to, I could copy it and put another one on the other side. And then I need to deselect, and I can go in and pick another straight line of a different stitch. And again, I would remove the fixes before I loaded before I started design shaping, so that stitch that I'm loading into the design shaping doesn't have the fixes. But I'm going to choose my straight line, and I'm going to rotate it by touching the rotation button in the center of this dial. And I'm going to want this to be the same size as the other lines. So what I would have done if I weren't talking and doing this is I would have noted what size I made these, what length, and I would make this the same. So now I can go into stitches and pick another stitch. Actually, let's pick 2 stitches. I'm going to go in and get some flowers, smaller flowers. So I could pick this flower and then a leaf. So it will be flower, leaf, flower, leaf. Let's find something that'll go with that. Okay, so I have a flower and a leaf, and I need to toggle this so that it will alternate them. It will repeat the pattern. And that looks pretty good. Okay, now a little bit of a hint to give you. As this stitches out, it's going to stitch out, and it's going to come down here. And then what's going to happen is it's going to jump over to here and stitch down there. And if you want to save thread, I would have created this line, then I would create this line, and I would actually turn it 180 degrees so that when it finished down here, it wants to start right up here. So if I turn this around 180 degrees, the start's going to be here. So I can pull this over here, and the jump stitch will only be from here to there. So to rotate it 180 degrees, I touch rotation and hit this twice. So now it's going to stitch, jump over here, stitch, and then I would want the next line to have its starting point there. But when you first start doing this, I wouldn't worry about that. It's not that much thread. Thread's relatively inexpensive, but if you want to fine tune it, that's a way you could save on thread, so you don't have a lot of jump stitches on the back, because it will go from one in the order in which you created it, or you could change the order here. So, but I wouldn't worry about that. First, I just have fun creating. So I could make a copy of that. I kind of like symmetry, and move that over there. And I can use these variables here to get it all lined up completely the same. Like right now, I'm just a little bit off. I could put that at 0, and then this one at 0, and they should be even, because that's the those coordinates. So I would just keep filling it up until visually I had what I wanted. And this would be a really great thing for a pillow. It could be the bodice of like a peasant blouse or a tunic, where you have lines of stitches, or it could be to texture the outside of a bag before you make the bag. There's just all sorts of things that you can do with that. So let's see if there's any other questions. What hoop size was used with the yellow pillow? I have a DDR. The yellow pillow is our new 260 by, or the yellow pillow was done with our new 260 by 260 hoop, which is our basically 10 by 10 hoop, the quilter's hoop, to do a 10-inch square. So that would be too wide for your diamond. It would work on the original Epic, the Epic 2, and the Ruby 90, because the Epic has the Epic and the Ruby 90, Epics and the Ruby 90 have a much bigger arm. Let's see if I can show you. This area here is over 12 inches. So we have a bigger the ability to use bigger hoops, wider hoops than you can with the Diamond Royale. So I don't have one right here, but I do have the 260 by 260 hoop. So this is a 260 by 260 hoop, and the Epics in the Ruby 90 come with a 360 by 260 hoop. But this is our new hoop for primarily quilters use it, but I actually like it for pillows as well. So that's what I used for the pillow. It's really nice having a bigger machine. Okay, especially if you're a quilter. So now, segueing off doing these straight lines, I want to show you how you can use your embroidery machine to make buttonholes for garments. So if I were going to make a buttonhole for a garment, and it was just, I needed one buttonhole, I would do it in sewing. I'd use the special buttonhole attachment, and I would use that. I wouldn't bother with embroidery. However, if I was going to make a shirt like this with a placard where there are buttons running all the way down, it's a bit of a challenge to get them all completely even, all uniform, and all even left and right, and evenly spaced from each other, and get them positioned properly. And you can do it in embroidery, and I'm going to show you how. And they come out perfectly spaced, and you can even add little tiny embroideries in between if you like. See, so we have a question. I was thinking, with all the designs available and lettering, I could build my own outdoor garden flag, all with the machine. I guess my only concern is rehooping, but if it won't fit, you can use design positioning and/or app. Wondering if you've tackled something like this, or any hints and tips. Yes, definitely. Whenever you want to make something that you have this sort of grand plan that's bigger than your hoop, you can definitely do it. You just have to use design positioning. You can use the design placement app that's part of my Sew Monitor. That is great for when the designs are somewhat separated from each other. If you have a design, like say you make a big circle and you want that circle to be uniform and you don't want to see any breaks in it, then you have to be more precise than you would with the app, and you'd want to use design positioning. And there is a tutorial at least on the Epic 2, the Brilliance 8. All our wireless machines have a tutorial in the machine on how to do design positioning. And there were a couple of Facebook Lives with Karen Charles where she went over design positioning incredibly thoroughly and in a very creative way. So look those up, and if you have any hesitation to do design positioning, she'll take care of you. So yeah, design positioning is where it's at. I think we have a real sort of corner on the market on the ability to line stuff up, because on the screen of these machines with the bigger interface, you can blow it up. The picture's so big that you see individual stitches. So you could take, say you have a circle you're trying to make uniform, you blow up the parts where it's meeting, and you can match stitch to stitch. Blow it up, like expand it. And if I have time, I'll show you what I mean. But you can get the visual on the screen so big that there's no way you won't match it up, because you put the stitch next to where the stitch should be. And I'm going to do a little bit of design positioning for the buttonhole piece. Meredith wants to know, is this on the original Epic? Yeah, somebody had asked that before. It is on the original Epic. And the Designer Diamond has a design shaping capability. It's not quite as, I think it's not quite as easy to use, but pretty easy. One of the reasons why I feel this is easy, because the graphics are so big and it's easy to see, and it's a little bit more sophisticated. So in general, when you pay more money for a machine, it is more sophisticated and it does things more easily, or it should be. Like, one of the things I love about having a top-of-the-line machine is that it does what I want it to do when I want it to do it, and I don't have to struggle with it. And once I learn the technique, it's going to work and it's going to be great. So anyway, buttonholes in the hoop. Okay, so this is one that I stitched out earlier. This is like a fake placard. This is what it's going to end up looking like if this were a shirt, hanging off over this way. It's going to sew the buttonholes right down the placard, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So going back to my screen over here, I'm going to get rid of the designs I have so far. Now, I am going to need to do design shaping again. So I'm going to go down to my icon at the bottom with the star and the circle. And I'm going to go up and pick a straight line. And then I'm going to minimize that screen. I'm going to touch the rotation button, rotate it straight up and down, because that's how I'm going to put my placard straight up and down on my stabilizer. And just, by the way, I would choose Aqua Magic water soluble stabilizer, because you will, if you use tearaway, after you're all done, on the back side of your placard, you may see little bits of that tearaway that you pulled away from the buttonhole stitches, particularly if your shirt is not white. If you have like a black shirt or a dark shirt, you're going to see little bits. But if you use the water soluble, when you're all done, you cut the water soluble as close as you can away from the buttonholes. And then if you want, you can take a Q-tip with some water and just rub it along the buttonholes to get rid of what's left over, or you can throw it in the wash and then it's gone. So that's really the way to go with buttonholes, is the Aqua Magic. Okay, so going back to our straight line. So before I did anything, I would measure on my pattern how long the placard is. So say and again, I didn't choose my hoop size. So I'm going to go back and do that. Let's see, what do I have? I have a 260 by 260 here. Then I'm going to go into design shaping, pick my straight line, minimize that. I'm going to hit the rotation button and rotate this. And then I would have measured my placard, and say my placard is 230 millimeters. I can pull this until I see 230 at the top, or I can go over here and put in 230. And that means that's the length of my placard, where the distance on the placard where my buttonholes will reside. Then I'm going to go into my stitches, and I know in the A menu we have a few different buttonholes. And in fact, when I got my first Viking, I looked at all those buttonholes and I thought, well, do I just choose the one that I like the way it looks best? But you can be a little bit more savvy on the like on the Epic and the Ruby and the many of our machines. If you touch the question mark and you touch the stitch, it will give you a recommendation. Like this says it has a square end for tailored coats and jackets. Or this one says it's a reinforced buttonhole for medium and heavy fabrics. So there's some in there that are for light fabrics and medium and all sorts of uses. So I would read about each one and pick the one that is the best for my particular project. So I'm just going to pick this one here, the first one. And when it loads horizontally. I typically turn it vertical. So I go down to this button down here, the square with the arrows. And I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. So now it is straight up and down. Now, I think that in addition to my buttonholes, I want to put little flowers in there because I am partial to flowers. So I'm going to go into the designs that are on my machine. And I know they're in the N menu, the mini ones, and pick one of these flowers here. So now I've got this nice little flower. And what I want to do is I want it to alternate. I want it to go buttonhole, flower, buttonhole, flower. So I need to toggle this switch down here. And on my pattern, I know it calls for, say, 4 buttonholes. Because it's counting the buttonhole and the flower, I'm going to need to put 8 in here. And since I have the evenly spaced here chosen, they all are going to be evenly spaced. So I don't have to worry about them being sort of not in the right place from left to right, or not being evenly spaced up and down. When I'm happy with that design, then what I do is touch the check mark at the bottom, and then touch the go button. And now I have my choices for the way that this will stitch out. And what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to choose based around the design, because I am not going to hoop my placard. I'm going to float it. And I am going to want to do sort and merge because I want to do the flower colors first. Well, let me explain what that is. When a person makes an embroidery design, now, first of all, not all embroidery designs are created equally. In our software, there is a setting where it will color sort automatically at the end of the design, or you can take that off. There's just a lot of different ways that embroidery designs are created. But when you have an embroidery design that has a bunch of different colors, like say it has a bunch of things that are red, a bunch of things that are blue, and a bunch of things that are green, if they're not sorted and merged, color sorted and color merged by either the digitizer or by a setting that we can do right now, what will happen is if it's not sorted, it will do them in the order in which they were created. So it might do a red item, a blue item, a red item, a green item, and so on. So you're changing thread like mad and driving yourself crazy. If you touch sort, then what will happen is it will do all the red, stopping between each item, and then do all the blue, stopping between each item. If you check sort and merge, it will do all the red, all the blue, and all the green, for instance. And so it's easier, but there are times when you don't want to do that. One is if you have applique, sometimes the applique stops are color changes. So that might throw a monkey wrench in that whole thing. And so if you have applique, don't do that. Don't set color block, sort, or merge. Or if you have things laying on top of each other where one thing has to go in a certain order, then you will you have to be careful with doing sort and merge. If everything is discrete, they're all discrete items, then it makes things a lot easier. So let's see, question. How do you know the length of the buttonhole you choose? Well, when you set the buttonhole, we can edit it and we can make it whatever length we want. So after I get this set up, I'll go back and show that. And I'm glad you asked that because I meant to say that and I didn't. Okay, so here's our embroidery options. I want it to do based around the design, and I want it to sort and merge. So I'm going to click continue. And now I have my design here, and I have it set up so that it is going to do basting stitches right around basically where the placard should reside. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to put my stabilizer in the hoop on the embroidery arm, and I'm just going to stitch the basting without anything on the stabilizer because that forms my template for the placard. And I'm doing it in a darker thread so that you can see it hopefully well on the screen. If this were an actual project, I would have used white, although it's basting stitches and they're going to be pulled out anyway, so it really doesn't matter. It might actually make them easier to pull out if they're a darker color. Okay, so now we have our template for where the placard should reside, where our buttonholes are going to be stitched all along here. So now we can lay this is my sort of fake placard for purposes of demonstration, and I'm going to lay it over. It's a little bit longer than I realized, but this is where I would want my buttonholes. And if I say on my pattern, wanted my first buttonhole to be right there, I would make a mark. And now what I'm going to do is I want it to baste around the design again to tack down my placard before I do any embroidery. So I'm going to go back over to my screen and open up my color block list. And down here, there's an icon with a flower in a box. If I touch that, that gives me my basting options again. Even though I already basted, I can baste again. And I want to baste around the design. So now we see that it says fix up there. That's what you'll see when it's going to baste. Fix is the same as baste. I don't know why they don't say baste, but that's what they do. So going back to my camera here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this in place lightly and baste this down again so it holds my placard in place. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my foot control so that I find that if I want to go slow and get something lined up really well, I'll use the foot control in embroidery, because as soon as I see something going awry, I'll automatically pull my foot off of the foot control faster than I find that stop button. I start panicking. Oh, where is it? So I use the foot control. Viking and our sister brand we're the only embroidery machines where you can use the foot control in embroidery. So it's occasionally a handy thing to have. So I'm using my foot control, and I'm going to sew along here, or baste rather. And I'm not being really exacting because we don't have all day to get this done. And if I had lifted this up, I would have seen that I needed to shift. My first buttonhole should really actually be a little bit lower. So I'm going to say that's my first buttonhole. I should have adjusted my fabric down further. So now I'm going to show you how to get your buttonholes lined up where you want them to be once you have this basted down. So now we're back here. I must not have finished basting. Now, since I still see fix there, it means that there's a couple of stitches I didn't do, because I was using the foot control. You should see your color blocks. There we go. So now we have our color blocks, but I don't want to just start stitching them out because I want to get the first buttonhole right there. So what I'm going to do is down at the bottom of my screen here, I have a little flower icon. That's the design positioning icon. I'm going to touch there. And you have a series of 4 icons on the side. When you touch the first one, that creates a blue crosshair at the where you first start stitching. And that's, if I don't change anything, that's where that first stitch is going to take place. And so I want that first stitch to be right here, but I see that it's too high. So I need to move the design down, or up rather, so that my first buttonhole is there. So the way that I do that is I touch the second icon down here. This is to create your reference crosshair. And this is to, the second one is to move your design to align it with your where you want it to be. So now I've got a red crosshair, and I'm going to move it down. I'm watching the needle now, watching the needle. And then what I will do is bring the needle down a little bit so I can really see where it's going to hit. So now that first buttonhole is going to be where I want it to be. Now, I'm going to go back to the first button to have our crosshatch, because I want to show you with design positioning how you can be incredibly accurate. Right now we have just life size there. I can touch here and then touch this icon and make it even bigger. Actually, let's bring it down so you can see it. Okay, I messed that up. Let's go back and bring this back up there to where we're going to start. And let's just bring this, make it bigger. And you can make this, see that you can make this as big as you want so you can match things up. So you could match stitch to stitch. So I'm going to go back and reposition this because I messed it up. And so now I'm going to move this back over. Oh, I wasn't showing you the screen. Let me go back. Wasn't showing you what I thought I was showing you. So let's go back to, we were right here. And so this is where we started, and I took the camera off what I actually wanted to show you. I can make this very large so that you can see individual stitches. So if I wanted to match something up, say like 2 buttonholes for some reason, one right underneath the other, you can see individual stitches. So with design positioning, you can be super accurate. But now I'm going to actually position this for my project here. And with buttonholes, I tend to use the arrows here because I don't want it to deviate left or right. And I touched something I shouldn't have touched. Okay. Now I need to bring this back up to get it so that I have my first stitch is going to be right where I want the buttonhole to be. So I'm going to just touch that arrow until I get the needle right where I want it to be on that line. And that's where my first buttonhole will stitch out. And when I'm happy with it, I touch the check mark, and then I can start stitching. So I'm not going to stitch all those out because I don't want to waste the time. But basically, you know, that's what I did here. You see the blue mark there. So I got the buttonholes lined up. And with this particular design I just did, I also put some flowers in here, but I didn't stitch that out on here. So once you get it all stitched out, you're going to take out all the basting stitches and take the water soluble off, and you got really great buttonholes. Now, how do you know the length of the buttonhole? Okay. So let's go back and I will show you that. So go back here, get rid of this. Go back to start, basically. Now, when you go into your buttonholes, and I load it, I've got one loaded, and I could have loaded that in a straight line, but once I load that, I've got this stitch edit button. I can go down here, and this one is 14 millimeters long. I can make it shorter or longer, and then I save it, and then each one that I then subsequently make in a straight line will be that same length. So you measure your buttonhole, and you measure your button, and then you just change the buttonhole to the size that will work for you, and then that will be in your straight line rather than the default size that I did this demo with. Does that make sense? Okay, so we have 4 minutes here. Let's see. Another thing I wanted to show you quickly is you can make patterns when you're doing these designs. So let's get rid of this. So if I'm going to say I go into design shaping, and you can make some interesting designs by going in here, and I could use any of these, but I'm going to use circle because I like circles. And one of the questions you might have is, when would you use counterclockwise and when would you use clockwise? You would use counterclockwise if a stitch goes, when you stitch it out in embroidery, if the stitch tends to go this way, then you have a bunch of those stitches, then you're going to want your circle to be counterclockwise. If your stitch tends to go clockwise from beginning to end, then you'd use the clockwise circle. But it's you don't have to do that. It just saves some thread. It makes the back a little bit better too. Okay, so I wanted to show you how you can make some sort of some semi-intricate patterns. So I've got my circle. Just want to make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to go in and pick one of these. And I didn't pick my hoop size again. Okay, now I got my hoop size, and I'm going to go back into design shaping. Pick my circle. Then go into my embroidery designs and pick a flower. And then I'm going to go back in and pick another flower. So I've got the blue and the red. Now, if I were to toggle this switch, it would go blue and pink rather. If I toggle the switch here, it will go blue, pink, blue, pink, blue, pink. But I want to make kind of a design. So I'm going to leave it untoggled. And what it's going to do is, as I hit the plus sign, it's going to make more of the last design I loaded. So, and let's bring these over so they are left justified so we can see the pattern. Okay, so now I've got a pink and then 4 blue. I can go over to pattern repeat by toggling that, and what's going to happen is it will keep that pattern. Now I could, at this point, if I want to, go in and pick a 3rd flower. And what will happen now is sort of interesting. it's going to repeat everything that I just did. So pretty soon we'll get that purple flower. So you see what that did? So it's just so much fun to play with. I love design shaping. You know, you don't have anything to lose. You just try it out. If you don't like that particular shape that you just created, then you delete it. You can create little tiny shapes design with stitches, and like create like a little flower with some of your sewing stitches, and touch the heart at the bottom of the screen and save it. Then bring it back and make a ring of those little flowers that you just created. So it's tons of fun. Let's see, what's the other question here. How do you figure out placement when it's a garment pattern and buttons in the holes have to go in a certain place? Well, that's what I just did. On your pattern, say your placard is 200 millimeters, and the first buttonhole is 10 millimeters down from where the stitch line, you know, the top of the placard. You measure down 10 millimeters on the placard once you've got it basted down, and you use design positioning to bring that first buttonhole down to that line that you just drew. So what I just demoed showed how you put everything in the place where you want it to be. Takes a little bit of practice, just like anything else, but it's not super difficult. And like I said, it's a lot of fun. And, you know, just try it out like I did, like in the demo, with some fabric, and get the hang of it before you do it on your fabric in your project. You know, usually put the buttonholes on last, and you don't want to have created a whole garment and then mess up the buttonholes. So try it on some fake placards first, get the hang of it, and then do it in your garment. And add some little flourishes too. It's a lot of fun. So any other last questions? Okay, thank you so much for joining me today. I had a blast sharing with you one of the features that I really love playing with. And I hope that you will open up your machine and play around with it and make something beautiful. So again, thanks, and see you next time.